This video is on simplifying rational expressions. A rational expression is a fraction whose numerator and denominator are polynomials. Since division by zero is undefined, the polynomial in the denominator cannot equal zero. The values of the variable that make the denominator equal zero are called the excluded values. A rational expression is simplified when the numerator and the denominator have no common factors other than 1. To simplify a rational expression, we want to factor both the numerator and the denominator and divide out any common factors. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. The first one, we have 3 minus n over n squared minus 10n plus 21. And we have to simplify this and state any excluded values of the variables. So the first thing I'd like to do is factor anything that I can. So the numerator cannot be factored, but my denominator can factor into n minus 3 times n minus 7. Now notice that the 3 minus n on the top and the n minus 3 on the bottom are not exactly the same. So I need to rewrite one of those so it looks like the other. So 3 minus n is actually equal to negative n plus 3. And if I factor a negative 1 out of that, I get n minus 3. So that's how I'm going to rewrite my numerator. Negative 1 times n minus 3 over my factored denominator. And now the numerator and the denominator have a common factor of n minus 3, and those will cancel each other out, so I'm left with negative 1 over n minus 7. That's my simplified rational expression. The excluded values of the variables, I have to go back to my original non-canceled denominator and say neither of those can equal 0, so n cannot equal 3 and n cannot equal 7. Let's take a look at our second example here. I have x squared minus 2x minus 35 over x squared minus 9x plus 14. Now your first reaction might be to look at that and say, oh, I can cancel the x squareds. But you can't. You can really only cancel out common factors. Factors means multiplication. X squared is a term that's being added or subtracted to each of the polynomials, so you can't cancel out things that are being added or subtracted, only factors which are being multiplied. So I need to factor the numerator and the denominator, and this is going to factor into x minus 7 times x plus 5 over x minus 7 times x minus 2. And now that I have factors, I can cancel out the common factors, which is x minus 7, and that leaves me with x plus 5 over x minus 2. And now to evaluate my excluded values, I want to go back to the original uncanceled denominator as it was in factored form and set each of those equal to 0. So x cannot equal 7 and x cannot equal 2. So here are a couple practice problems for you to try on your own. So stop the video and do these in your math journal. Okay, let's take a look at these two examples of rational expressions that we need to simplify. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2n plus 12 over n squared minus 36 factors into n plus 6, n minus 6. And I can further factor my numerator. I'm going to factor out a negative 2, and that's going to leave me with n minus 6 over n plus 6 and, n minus 6. And I have common factors of n minus 6, so those will cancel each other out. And I'm left with negative 2 over n plus 6. And my excluded values are that n cannot equal a positive or a negative 6. And my last practice problem here, 2x squared minus 14x over x squared minus 8x plus 7. Let's go ahead and factor both the numerator and the denominator. So that factors into 2x times x minus 7. And the denominator factors into an x minus 1 and an x minus 7. Again, x minus 7 are common factors in the numerator and denominator that will cancel out. So that leaves me with 2x over x minus 1. And evaluating my excluded values, I go back to my original uncanceled but factored denominator. So x cannot equal 1 and x cannot equal 7. So in this video, we took a look at how to simplify rational expressions, a rational expression being basically a fraction with a polynomial in the numerator and the denominator. We need to factor as much as we can and then cancel out common factors in the numerator and denominator. Don't forget to state the excluded values. Those are the values of the variable that make the denominator equal to 0.